Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Brosen. I'm your host this week, Mitch Hudson. I'm joined by our good friend, our Nepo baby Jenkins. It's Sam Jenkins.
What is up, guys? In a new location, as always.
As always.
He's a nice Nepo baby.
He's a nice Nepo baby. We are joined by our beautiful bro, Ben Stockton.
Uh-oh.
With a nice new background.
New
of
lighting
Atkins.
setup.
Yeah.
Did a professional director of photography help me set this up?
It looks
Nice
fantastic.
consultation.
And then, of course, the reigning champion maybe of lighting setups and backgrounds, Willie Mellina. 2 L's, not last name.
I'm missing the haze. I'm missing the haze today, guys. You know, I just feel like go natural, organic. Yes, I'm here and I'm fearless.
And we are joined, of course, by our boss bro, the leader, El Capitan, Adam Gray.
Yeah. What's up? Pictures up.
Yo, pictures up. Oh,
Pictures up.
Please.
Mitch.
Just cued all of you guys by saying that.
It has been too long since it has been just the bros on the bros, and we're going to have a great time tonight. I'm very excited. Also, I have a new background because I keep made mercifully fun of me, but check this out. I think we're looking good now. Thank you, guys. Thank you. This week, we want to give you just the bros because we've had a lot of guests, and that's been super exciting, but we also love hanging out with each other, and we love talking about the show that we love making together. So we did one of these episodes a few episodes back in our first season of The Brosen, where we watch episodes and we kind of talk about them. We're kind of changing it up a little bit, where now we're not just going to sit and watch the episode. We want to break down some scenes that we were involved in or are passionate about from The Chosen, and kind of maybe share some stories that you might not have heard before, or some behind-the-scenes tidbits that might make it interesting. So we're going to join in, and we're going to kind of talk about episode 2 this week.
From season 1.
From season 1, yes. So this week we're going to talk about season 1, episode 2. We have all picked a scene or a section that we think is really interesting and that we might have something to share about that hopefully you guys are going to enjoy. So without further ado, should we jump in?
Let's do it.
I think we should start.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Okay, so the first clip we're going to talk about here is the clip that Willie Mellina picked out. So, Sam, why don't you go ahead and hit play for us, and then
Yes, sir.
Willie, take it away.
I think it's arguably the greatest single episode arc of any character. I'm thinking of maybe, Nathaniel, season 2. But this episode 1, season 1, the character arc for Mary Magdalene, who started out as Lilith, I remember thinking, I remember Yusuf in episode 2. And literally, as I start the episode, I was like, oh, shoot, we're kind of getting that. We're starting with Mary, and we see her with a whole new skin, her eyes, and that opening hero shot. And I thought, wow, we've got the greatest, possibly the greatest character arc in one of our main players, episode 1, which is, what grabbed so much of our audience in the first place. So many people could connect to that. And then I just love the fact that I think the writing is just so genius because there's very little writing, right? Very little dialogue. It's just, the shout out to our season 1 amazing Texas co-stars. We had so many in season 1 and even season 2 from Texas, just locals coming in and doing a fantastic job. And I literally, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh gosh, her and her. But anyways, I just thought, wow, what a smart thing. And then now here we are coming up on season 6, but it's through season 5. No spoilers yet, but Yusuf is still a big player, right? And his arc from season 1 to season 4 is so powerful. And I think everybody who has ever seen The Chosen, show about Jesus, his disciples, check it out. It's got its own app. Yusuf is one of those players that separates himself. He is a Pharisee that, obviously has started to migrate towards the good side, in Jesus' name. Yeah. And so it's just a POV, man. It's a POV. And he has that look as, who the heck is that? Wait a second. Is that? No, it can't be. Yes, it is. And it's just awesome. I mean, anybody who's seen or been close to someone in their family or friends, when you've seen someone, when Jesus comes in their life and you can see the transformation, sometimes it's a slow educational variety. Sometimes it is boom, burning bush, and their life has changed. The people they hang out with changes. The playgrounds that they go play at have changed.
Yeah. It's just so different. It's just so different from the last time we saw her. The last scene between Yusuf and Mary was Nicodemus trying to exorcise Mary. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, that's right. Right. Of course. Of course. And the last time we see her before the Jesus moment is like, we just see, she's not in a good place, and she's back in there. She's like, give me a drink. Right. And then I called you by your name, which, whew, come on. And then we open on that hero shot. She's doing someone's hair. She is a woman back in society, back with her friends, all smiles. And then we get to see the reaction from a young Pharisee. And it says so much by not, you talk about show me, don't tell me. For any filmmakers out there watching this, The Chosen in Dallas and the writers did an incredible job of showing us with minimal dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really powerful, and I think it's a great scene that you picked out because, yeah, I mean, just imagine, like, the last time you saw a person, they were in the just ugliest, like, just nastiest place of their life, and then suddenly they're picking flowers, and they seem healed, and they seem happy, and they seem just whole again. It's crazy. It would be mind-blowing, and I think you would be like, something has happened. I don't know what it is, but something changed dramatically. That came between these.
You see someone that's wrapped in sin and bondage, and they're like, they're having seizures, or they're getting drunk and driving and getting thrown in jail, and they've got their third DWI, and then all of a sudden you see them and they're out in society, and they're doing yard work, and they're hanging out with their friends, and they're shooting basketballs with their sons. It's like, whoa, that's real transformation in real time. And we get to do that in episode 2. So now everybody's just like, we're already like interested in Yusuf because we see his interest and response to her in the transformation. And then we're all thinking, whoa, look at what God has done in this woman's life. We can't wait to see more.
And it's cool too, because I think mostly I think before this show had an association that Pharisees are the bad guys. You know what I mean? Like in the Bible, certainly, I think most of the time we see the Pharisees, it's the times that Jesus is rebuking them for being legalistic and for being kind of just hateful overall. And of course, getting Jesus crucified. And so the fact that, someone sees her who cares about her transformation, and it is a Pharisee, I think it's kind of cool.
And another side note, just to add on to what Willie had said earlier, I do like, and I feel like, of course, it's consistent to the show, but almost immediately we could kind of see that The Chosen's different. You already see women in that time getting hair done, and you think about it, and it's like, oh yeah, you might not see that in other shows because somebody may not think about that, but it's like, it's just life for anybody else. Like, of course, women are going to be getting their hair done. It's literally a tale as old as time. So it's cool to just also incorporate that and show like, hey, here's how women are serving other women is by doing their hair. Yeah, just a neat little thing to add in for sure.
It's cool too because there's like subtle things that I think The Chosen does so well about just capturing the culture. Yeah, you can pause right there. When they are in the salon is one of the few times that we see the women without head coverings. And they have these like, drapes around the hair salon because back then it was inappropriate for a man to see a woman without her head covering. But how do we see Mary for the, since her kind of redemption, as we see her in the scene with other women without covering, kind of being free, being open, safe, communicating, with each other. It just feels like kind of a mixture of like a protected environment and also a free environment, I guess. Because of course, as soon as Mary steps out to go get the flower. When she steps out, she's wearing her headdress because that's the culture. That's what that's what women did back then.
So good, dude. It's a great note. Humanizes them, normalizes them.
There's also I think that's crazy about the scene that maybe you guys noticed too. What did you guys think about the moment that all the extras stop for Yusuf?
Yeah, so I was going to comment on that. I think it's funny that you see all the extras stop, like there's out of respect for the Pharisee, which we never continued again after that
Never did that ever
episode.
again.
We have never done that. I mean, we've had Pharisees in the court of Gentiles, hundreds of background, and they just walk right by them and bump into them. So It's so funny that we just abandoned that completely. But it worked great for that scene, but we never used it again.
Yeah, it was interesting. When you look back at these season 1 things, we were still kind of figuring out what the rules of the world were, and this kind of was a thing, from what I understand, of like they would be respectful. It was a religious leader, and so they would allow them to pass. But yeah, you compare that to in season 5. There's a scene where a bunch of Pharisees are talking in an alleyway with crowds for the Passover, kind of walking around them, and they're getting jostled.
Yeah, they're getting knocked over, like people just walking right into it.
Massive difference from what we did.
What's also really cool about that scene from a production design standpoint is Mary in the hair salon and out there with Yusuf is the exact same spot that we did the wedding. And so we actually took all that stuff down. Like we had to shoot very far apart in the schedule because that set was so small. That whole area in Capernaum was so small that we had to take the hairdressing salon down, pull all that out, and then put walls around it and created the entire wedding scene in the same exact spot that whole thing happened. And of course, they look nothing alike. So it's just really fun production design. Yeah.
We made so much use out of that space.
I mean, you've kind of touched on all the points. I didn't get to work on this scene. I do love the dichotomy between Lilith and Mary Magdalene. I love how quick we jump into the Mary Magdalene, about how one entire episode we spent with a completely other character. Liz Tavish kind of played 2 completely different roles and has only played the Lilith role, let's say twice, because there's that one arc, I want to say in season 3, where she almost goes back to her old ways. Maybe she plays Lilith twice.
That's fair.
But
yeah,
I mean, it's the glow that Liz has in this character is so contagious. Like, you love seeing her all bright and loving and smelling the flowers. It's pretty on the nose, but it's really beautiful, that scene where she picks up and she's smelling the flower. And it's like the difference between beauty and the horror show that was episode 1 that we filmed on Halloween. It's just really, really touching to see.
Yeah, Sam, you were what, 11 years old when we filmed that scene? Is that about right?
I would have been 8 years old. Mitch was babysitting me at the time and had to bring me along to the set. Yeah.
You know what's crazy? He said his first word. And it was
he's come such a long way. Shout out to Sam for saying dichotomy. I have no idea what that means.
No, his first word was tabish.
No, my first words were more, daddy, more.
More? You want more?
Money, daddy. Job, daddy.
Sam was a young British boy.
I said more Johnny Cash, Daddy. More Johnny Cash.
More Johnny Cash,
Daddy. More, please.
I don't want Blake Shelton again, Daddy. I want Johnny Cash. Please subscribe to our Patreon. Like, comment, and subscribe. Daddy, tell them to like, comment, subscribe, and sign up for the Patreon. Please, Daddy. More exclusive content, Daddy. Please.
This has been a message from Nepo Baby Jenkins telling you to subscribe to our Patreon. All right. Next clip, I think, is Ben's. I think it's...
It is. It's literally the scene right after.
Yeah.
And here's why I'm going to go into the Maze Sin of what this looks like. So if we look at a shot-to-shot comparison of House of David... I'm just kidding.
What? Can you explain to the people what Maze Zen means, please?
Yeah, what the heck is that?
I believe it's French. Mise en scène. It is.
Oh, that makes sense when you say it correctly.
Yeah, it's like Cinema 101, okay? You go to one intro class of a cinema, like some kind of cinema course, they're going to teach you that in literally the intro.
Let's go ahead and hit play because we can have a refresher for all of us, and then, Ben, you can set us up.
I hope you're hungry and you've come to eat. Okay, listen, it's a long scene, so I'm going to break it down. It truly is remarkable to me that if we look at the first episode, we've already seen some like pretty outstanding writing for what is a faith-based show that was independently funded at the time. You know what I mean? You're like, oh wow, I'm a little impressed by how like sharp the writing is, but I feel like right here is the kickoff of The Chosen of being like, this is truly where some of the best writing is and just starts to blossom. It's just insane to me that like you get an intro even more into who Matthew is, Quintus, and Gaius, and a little bit of Simon as well. That like you just start to get all these blending together. But what I think I like the most is at the end of the first episode, you get the happy ending, and you're like, oh, okay, so we might be on like this show might be more positive. And then almost immediately we see Mary at the beginning where you see her happy and she's already going through the market as we just discussed. But now immediately it's like, oh, well, don't forget, nobody's in control here. The Roman Empire is. They are the ones who are the authoritative, like, commandeers right now. They can do whatever they want. He could literally have both of his own men killed and a tax collector killed, and nobody would probably do anything because they're in Israel. You know what I mean? Or in Jerusalem. So it's just one of those things that there's a lot of points that you can look at. But I feel like then, just as you show how almost evil and how brilliantly playing Quintus is the fact that as despiteful and almost evil as he is, you see Matthew come in as his own. That's just like, no, like no crap on the line. Here's how I look at it. You made a bad deal, and I'm actually trying to save you money here. I'm literally trying to help you because that's my job. And so you see so many different aspects of it with not even the words that are actually saying that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Brilliant writing. That's the end of my thing. On to the next scene. Let's hit it.
Well, to go along with what you said, Ben, it's the acting too. So the writing is so incredibly good. And then this is our first time meeting Quintus. And Brandon, dude, played those lines so like going back and watching again, I was just like, man, he just really built that character in that short amount of time. In that one scene, I felt like I knew so much about him and how he worked and how he ran his area and and then his discovery of Matthew. All the characters played so well. You could see exactly what Gaius's motivations and fears were. You could see the same thing with Matthew and the same thing with Quintus. Like you could just see each character exactly how they're played, and just you learn like that tiny scene. You just learn so much about all three of those characters, like you said, and that's just what was so impactful. And watching that, going back and watching that again now after we're 6 seasons in, I'm just like, man, it's just cool. Like they were so good from the beginning. Yeah.
If you were going to break that scene down, what is the best moment to like? Really, like if you're going to take one moment from that scene, like what is the best moment to like tear apart and study?
To me, it would be right when Quintus starts to be like, no, we're done here. And Gaius immediately tells that like Matthew is about to get his head taken off. And so he immediately bows down, and you can see right there, okay, Gaius is somebody who's going to bend the knee when he feels like he's in the wrong. He immediately was just like, okay, I'm done. I'm on the knee. And that already you could see clearly now, even as Adam said, 6 seasons later, how much Gaius has changed. But it's still like, that's who he was at the time. And Quintus was like, no, let's get into it. I will take your heads right now. And Matthew was like, no, this is how it's going to be. And it's the second episode, and you're already seeing that Matthew's like, he's not your regular character.
And that's a good point too. I mean, we have, the fact that Gaius bends the knee here versus what we see of him later on in the show, it is crazy the growth that you can kind of track with all three of these characters over time in the next few seasons. It's insane. This is not the first time we've seen Quintus in the show. We obviously saw him in episode 1 where he talks to Nicodemus, but it is interesting because in episode 1, we're seeing Quintus talk to Nicodemus kind of in, I don't know, somewhat neutral territory, almost between one leader to another leader. But now we're seeing what it looks like when Quintus is talking to people who work for him, who report to him, and how, it's almost like one of the barons from Dune, right? It's like, you waste my time, you're going to die. That's just what it is. Yeah, and it's scary. But for me, I think the highlight moment of this scene is probably when Matthew does skip to the end and he says, "Did you hire a fisherman named Simon to spy on other fishermen on Shabbat?" And Quintus just kind of says, "Yes, Simon." One, he's been asked a direct question and he answered it. He could have lied. He could have said, "No, I didn't do that." He could have covered his own bases, but he's not afraid of what this other Jewish tax collector might know that he's doing, because it doesn't matter to him. And he also remembers Simon's name. It's not just like a random fisherman. It's someone that he remembers that he made a deal with. And so I think he literally says those two words. He says, "Yes, Simon." And it's like, okay, great. Everything you have to know about Quintus in that answer, which is crazy. He's smart. He has a good memory, and he's also not ashamed. He has no fear, I guess. And that's just
super strategic.
Yeah, it makes Mitch the perfect stand-in for Quintus.
It does.
It really does. It does. Yeah.
I am the perfect stand-in for Quintus.
Yeah, it almost kind of gives you it just gives you, again, it's like humanizes it, relatable. We can relate it to, a mob boss or, something. We just kind of we're like, oh man, yes. And his brother, you forgave both of it? Yes. It's like, I don't know. It's a really great writing.
Yeah. Also, Sam mentioned this a moment ago, but you're right that in these scenes, it is kind of wild when I watch any scene of Quintus, because every time we've ever filmed with Quintus, I have stood in for him. I don't know why. Maybe we have the same facial.
Here's a picture of Mitch right now sitting in for Quintus right here.
I don't know. I don't know why they picked me for the Quintus stand-in. It doesn't really make any sense. But we have the same shoulders. We have the same build, I guess.
Yeah.
So
that's Mitch, you're both bald. If you put together, I was going to say from earlier.
Wait a minute.
If you put this scene together, these three characters, Quintus, Gaius, and Matthew, and you go to the show today, the journey that these characters have been on is insane.
Yeah.
Where you have Matthew now with a beard, one of the main followers of Jesus, writing everything down. Not the Matthew we know anymore. He's friends with Simon. They're buds. You have Gaius being redeemed with his other son that they didn't know about. And now he's now he's Praetor. And now he's getting all the stuff for Jesus. And then you have Quintus, who kills one of our most beloved and main characters. So with a start.
Whoa, spoiler. Too soon, Sam.
Dude, Sam, brother.
Sam, too soon, man. Spoiler.
Guys, I have a spoiler for season. Jesus is going to die. That's a spoiler for season 6. Who are you talking about? First.
Sam, dude.
No, it's just crazy where we start and where we get to.
It's so fun, the character development in this show. I think it's one of the things that makes the show great. And I think it's just cool when you can look back on this and see they changed, but they didn't change because of TV needs, fan service, popularity, whatever. They changed because there was a plan, there was a growth, there was all this stuff. All these seeds were planted that are now being harvested as the show continues.
Actually, not many people actually know this. It's crazy that I know this and y'all don't. But episode 1, actually, Brandon had hair. And so many people had an outcry, they made him shave his head.
That's right. That's 100%
Public
right.
investors.
These are some unreleased stills from the unreleased episodes where Quintus had hair before we did the reshoots, and we decided to have him be bald.
One more note. Again, production design. Sorry, I want to go back to production design for this. But what's really cool about the Roman Authority is that was Roman Authority 1.0. I think we're up to 4.0 now. But what's cool is obviously I thought that set looked great, but compared to the Roman Authority now, it doesn't look even close to great. And so as we got bigger and got more money and we're able to do more stuff, we should do a side-by-side comparison. If we can, we'll put it up on the screen of just Roman Authority 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, how it got better each time. So it's still like the audience still has the same look, still feels like you're in the same place. But as we grew, it just grew better and better. And now the Roman Authority looks so much better than it did the first time we filmed it.
It's very true.
I don't remember who said it, but it's as the show matures, the production design matures.
I think you said that, Ben. I think that was your quote.
Ben, didn't you say you want to talk about the mise en scène in this scene?
Oh yeah, so what I really want to talk about with these three characters, just it's crazy to think this is where their past began. In the character arcs, there was no rebuttal, and the fact that there were true character arcs from here to the end. I mean, one of these guys stabs another character later on. You know what I'm saying?
Whoa.
Dude.
Whoa.
Filter, Ben.
I know. Isn't it crazy? Hey everybody, how's it going? It is Ben Stockton, one of your favorite members of the Brosen. Thank you so much for giving us a listen or a watch today, whatever platform you're on. I wanted to give a special shout out to our sponsor, Trevecca Nazarene University. They are rated one of Middle Tennessee's top Christian universities. They have an outstanding film and television degree, and they're the alma mater of our very own Adam Drake. Plus, he's a professor there right now. So, if you go to Trevecca, you can not only get a film degree, but you can maybe have Adam Drake, our host of The Brosen, as your professor. How crazy would that be? All that to say, if you want to check it out and go to a fabulous school in the heart of Nashville, go check them out at trevecca.edu.
This episode of The Brosen is brought to you by Exalt Pictures. Using radical art to resurrect faith, Exalt Pictures has created bold, graphic t-shirts of Jesus and soon other biblical characters, here's your Jesus one, in a gritty kind of Marvel comic style. They even had a Marvel artist draw their illustrations. These tees aren't just art, they're conversation starters. It's a powerful way to display your faith and share the gospel with a pop culture-driven world. Christianity was the original counterculture. Now you can wear it like one. Check yours out at exaltpictures.com. Back to the show.
Okay, so the scene I wanted to talk about was unfortunately... I was early to the punch of picking this scene. Of course, you guys are all going to know what this scene is. This is the scene where Mary Magdalene and Nicodemus talk for the first time since Mary Magdalene has been redeemed.
Advice, what could go wrong?
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
So in this scene, what happens is that Mary Magdalene is making plans for having a Shabbat dinner of her own. And on her way out of the hair salon, she runs into Nicodemus, who's been looking for her. So he had heard from Yusuf and from the other religious leaders that something has happened, that Lilith is not the same from what Yusuf's report was. And he wanted to go and find out for himself. He wanted to basically confirm whether or not a miracle has actually taken place, because a transformation like this could only be a miracle. And, of course, he happens to find her right as she's exiting on her way out. The two of them reconnect, and, of course, they have the conversation, which leads to the very famous Chosen quote, where he asks her, what happened? What can you tell me? And she says, all I can tell you is this. I was one way, and now I'm completely different, and the thing that happened in between was him. And then she bids him farewell and goes off to have her own Shabbat dinner. This scene is, of course, incredible. It's one of the more famous scenes of The Chosen, one of the more quoted scenes of The Chosen. There are T-shirts on it. But there's also a lot here that I think is really interesting. One is that we just talked earlier in this episode about how Mary, when she would step out of the salon, would normally cover her hair. But when she steps out, it's not covered. She just, maybe she wasn't thinking about whatever it is. She just steps out. She's just walking home, right? And interestingly, the last time that Nicodemus saw her, her hair also was not covered, because he saw her in that upper room and she was kind of writhing around as Lilith, So you could argue that it was kind of important that he actually saw her without a head covering, just because more ability to recognize, I guess, when it's not up. But then, Nicodemus recognizes her. He kind of asks her questions. And of course, when he says that he's a religious leader and he shows the shawl that's on his shoulders, she immediately covers her hair because she realizes that she's in violation of their cultural rules, But he's not there for that, which again is what is so special and different about The Chosen, is that this is someone who is not trying to enforce the law, but just wants to understand what is happening here. What is the miracle that is at play? And of course, this is a big moment that will eventually lead to Nicodemus seeking out Jesus and meeting with him himself. He's worried less about the rules than he is about the transformation that is in front of him. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about this story, about the show, about our faith as a whole, is that it is not about, oh, are you following the minutia of cultural laws, religious laws, etc. All he cares about is she has been changed, and that is all that matters. I think that's what's so kind of cool about this kind of moment. And but she doesn't want to respond to that because she is nervous. She doesn't like having reminders of what her life was not that long ago. I don't know how long it's been between episode 1 and episode 2. But they may have said it in the episode, I may have missed it, but let's say it's been like a week, right? A week ago, she was standing on the edge of a cliff, thinking about jumping off. And now here she is and
hosting.
Yeah, she's about to host a Shabbat dinner. She doesn't want to go back to that. And so being questioned about her former life kind of gives her some anxiety because I think she's afraid that maybe a reminder will push her back into that negative place of where she was, and we see some of that explored later on in the show, like what Sam mentioned earlier about, in season 2, some of her struggles in that season. But at the moment she's like, I am forward facing. I am not trying to talk about who I used to be or what used to happen to me.
Don't go by that name anymore.
Yeah, don't go by that name anymore because we're not the same. When Jesus intervenes, like it doesn't matter what she used to be called, who she used to be. That's gone. It's just Mary now. And yeah, it's a beautiful scene. It's beautiful. It speaks to the heart of who Jesus is, what Jesus does when he's in people's lives. And yeah, it's fun. It's a nice scene. It's pretty good.
One thing I noticed about this scene is that once she says Mary, Nicodemus continues calling her that. He calls her Mary like 3 times in a row, and he's like, but this Mary, but that Mary. And then at the end, he says, Shabbat Shalom, Mary. And I think it's really, really, really a sweet moment and very good writing to put an emphasis on that and be like, I'm going to keep calling you Mary. I'm going to keep, like, this is your new person. This is who you want to be identified as. Yes, Mary. Of course, Mary. Shabbat Shalom, Mary. And then she says, he called me Mary. And I'm like, hits you right here.
That's a great point,
yes.
man.
Yeah.
Again, it really also speaks, I think, to just the fertile soil that was Nicodemus's heart too. Of okay, you're Mary. I respect that. Like I will, I will. If that is who you are, if that is who Jesus has made you to be, like I'm gonna. I'll go along with it because clearly there's a change.
I was going to say, Mitch, kind of as you had said, like clearly the big telling of the entire show was like, I was one way and now I'm another. But I think even more, as you said with Nicodemus, that he is more curious and more like, hey, what are you talking about? This happened. Then he's not caring about their custom at the moment. He's not caring about that law because it's like, no, in his mind, he might actually be witnessing a miracle, and it was performed by somebody who doesn't want any credit. And it's just, as a very religious and respected leader at that time, like I can't even imagine the accreditations that this man probably has as a Pharisee in his age, like that already starting to turn is like, okay, that's another fish. And then there's another one, and then it's just, and you're just seeing it. So yeah.
So shout out to Mitch Hudson, because that was I feel like that was one of our first scenes with a lot of background and a lot of moving and crossing. And the best background in a scene like that is background you don't notice, you don't see. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't watching a single background member during that scene. And that's how you know Mitch crushed it, is like you're not paying attention to it. It's good, it's busy, there's a lot going on, but also the scene, obviously the acting and the writing and all that's extremely good. So you're already focused in, but then good background doesn't distract you. So and that was a really tough scene because Liz and Eric were moving and walking, stop and then go, stop and then go. So you have to constantly be moving background and adjusting and going, okay, we're moving over here. Now we're shifting over here. So you're constantly throughout the scene moving. So it was honestly a very difficult scene for Mitch to direct background, but crushed it because he didn't even notice it.
Dude, shout out to Adam Drake for that shout out. Also,
it is crazy that you talk about how like invisible the background is. I mean, I certainly every now and again look at it just because I'm always looking at it sometimes in this show. But yeah, you're so locked into them that you don't even notice that there's a horse that walks through the background at one point. You know what I mean? Like maybe if you're looking for it, but yeah, they're talking, and then no, here comes a Roman on a horse. You know, it's just like not a big deal.
And you're like, for us on set, that is a big deal. A horse walking around, that's a big deal.
I worked very hard to put that in and have it be not noticeable.
Exactly.
You know? Speaking of things you may not have noticed, I don't know if anyone else is going to talk about this, but Sam, if you are able to scrub to one of the shots on Mary when she's talking to Nicodemus here. Yeah, perfect. Hold it right there. So I'm sure fans have noticed this, but if you have not thought about that, that behind Mary is Matthew's tax booth. Mm-hmm. They're all in the same. They're all in the same space, but that is, technically in our space, in our world, all this stuff. Matthew's tax booth was 20 feet from the salon where Mary was hanging out, and they ended up becoming best friends in the show. You know what I'm saying? Like in the story of the show, Matthew and Mary Magdalene bond maybe more than anyone, and they were here having these lives 25, 30 feet apart.
Look at that frame. Look at that frame, right? Like, think about that. We heard her story. We heard Liz's story. It could have been 1,500. It could have been 15,000 different actresses that could have booked that role. But it wasn't. It was someone that was 100 miles south that used to go to school a couple of 100 miles north that last minute gets booked. And can anybody in the world that's a Chosen fan imagine anybody else playing that role? And look at that frame. Like, that is Mary Magdalene. Yeah. And my favorite camera move of the whole scene is at the very, very end when we're right behind and then we want to feel Nicodemus. I love that camera.
So the next thing we're going to be talking about is Adam's pick for episode 2. It's a fun one. It's near the end of the episode. Adam, why don't you summarize the scene, and then we can talk about it from there.
Yeah, so the episode has kind of been setting up for it, but it's to the Shabbat dinner. And then that Mary was Lilith, now Mary, that we've met with Nico, now is setting up for dinner, and it's already beautiful. And she starts having friends over. We get to meet Barnaby and Shula and some of these new characters, and then these random guys show up, and it's like, what's going on? And then Jesus shows up, and dude, when Jesus shows up, that moment is so beautiful. The way Jonathan plays it, the way Liz plays it, like, my goodness, that moment is just like, it hits every time. I've seen it a dozen times and it still hits every time of her reaction to, this is the first time she's seen him since she's been healed, and he's invited himself over for dinner.
Hello, Mary.
Hello.
It's good to see you.
Yes. Yes.
And then comes in for dinner, and the whole scene plays out, and it's just beautiful. We get to see a little bit of the comedy with Barnaby. We get to meet a couple of our disciples for the first time and realize that Jesus has already recruited a couple disciples that we didn't know about and we didn't get to see, which is awesome because we get to see that later on, which I like that the Chosen did, is that we didn't abandon it, but we just come back to it much later and do a flashback to see how Jesus called Thaddeus and little James, which is cool. So, but it's pretty cool that Jesus steps into this already having some disciples when he meets Mary. And then, of course, that finishes out the episode and we get to see all the different Shabbat dinners. Mm-hmm. But man, this specific scene was just, again, so beautiful, because we've seen this change, and Liz just carries it. And then when Jonathan comes in, it just kind of changes the whole trajectory of it. And it's the first time we see kind of Jesus. Also, he gives the wink to Barnaby, which is like, we haven't seen that side of Jesus yet. And everybody's like, oh, he's like He's funny and and then just charming, and just has the moment with the moments with Mary, just showing that love and compassion. This is where we really get to start to meet Jesus, our Jesus on the Chosen, and we get to see for the first time how good Jonathan is at showing that compassion and that love and that grace that we know our actual Jesus has, and he just portrays it so well, and so. It just made for such a beautiful scene, man.
100%. No, you raise a good point that this is the first time we see Jesus kind of in like a normal circumstance. We get to actually meet the character of Jesus,
right?
Not the I don't know how to describe it, but like it's almost like we're seeing Jesus's alter ego, not his superhero self. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like casual Jesus. What I was thinking, casual Jesus.
Yeah, casual Jesus. Yeah, because in episode 1, all we see is him redeem Mary. Like he talks to her briefly in the bar, and then he calls her.
Yeah, he's doing a miracle.
Beautiful moment. But now it's like, is it okay if I come in and hang out with you? You know what I'm saying? It's just humble Jesus, the carpenter Jesus. And it's nice.
How crazy is it that he shows up at the end, the very end of episode 1? None of episode 1, none of episode 2, the very end of episode 2. It's almost like this angelic kind of sneaking in there. Oh, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool the way they're showing the world. The show could have easily just been Jesus centered the whole time. There's definitely could have been a version of The Chosen that would be probably what you would expect, right? It would start with the nativity.
And the dove descended upon his shoulder.
Right. Well, yeah. It'd just be overdone. You know what I mean? Like usually it'd just be so holy, so supernatural. But instead, we meet the world, how it's going without Jesus, so that when he does arrive, it has impact, has meaning.
I'd love to see a version of The Chosen where Jesus is a white guy with blue eyes and is played by Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
Or played by Willie Mellina with long, luscious locks, and he walks and he's like, come on, somebody, 9 pounds, 10 ounces, Waco, Texas. What up?
Is that your
Hey, Willie, do you act? I didn't know.
Yeah, never heard that.
Huh.
That was your best performance I've seen, Willie. That was your number one performance, best read you've had, was the reaction as soon as Sam said that.
That's great.
No, so speaking of the film, like logistically and how we shot it, so this was a very tiny room. And we have, 2, 4, 5, 6 people in there, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is like a tiny square, a box. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Akis for one, our cinematographer, making it look absolutely beautiful. And on camera, you can't tell that it's that small. He worked with such a small space and obviously limited on lighting. This is early on the show. We're still learning too. Obviously, he has to use fire for light. Mm-hmm. And so he just made this scene still so beautiful with such a small space.
Yeah.
And this night was absolutely freezing. I don't remember the temperature, but it snowed outside. And so you were either inside with the candles and it was probably about 105 and the actors were sweating, or you're outside and you're huddling up to your friend freezing to death. So that's what it was like shooting this night. And it took many hours, as you can see, because we had to get lots of coverage, all these different characters, and a very important scene to get to the closing of the episode. So much coverage, everybody coming in and out of the door and stuff like that. So it was a very challenging to film, but it turned out so amazing.
Ben, do you remember Ben standing outside of this room?
So and Mitch knows, because this night, I mean, I think I don't remember. I feel like it was a irrationally low PA team that night. I think it was literally just 2 of us. I mean, that may have been just the 4 episodes in general for the first 4 episodes, but I'm pretty sure Moody was running around helping special effects this night because there was 0 BG there. And so it was pretty much just me on lockup. And so I'm outside and Mitch would just come out and be like, how you doing, man? And I'd be like, I'm freezing. And he would just be like, it's bad in there. And then Adam would come out and be like, gosh, it's hot. And I would just be like, it's good and quiet out here. Nobody's talking because nobody's outside. It's cold and it's quiet.
It's so good.
It was like a 20-year-old just standing outside I'm getting $10 an hour. Oh my gosh.
I will never forget standing outside that room and walking up to Chad Gunderson, our kind of our lead producer on the show, and it started to snow on us. And you remember that? It actually snowed on us while we were outside the room. Adam doesn't know because he was in there, short sleeves, cozy. He had his little toes up by the fire.
I was not cozy,
chatting
man.
with that Keats. Oh, you're going to do a shot over that way? That sounds kind of nice. Meanwhile, Ben and I
right here. It sounds like a good idea.
We're just like,
Ben and I are out there looking like
Hey,
Luke Skywalker and the Tauntaun from Empire Strikes Back. But it was snowing on us, and I'll never forget walking up to Chad Gunderson. Snow's coming down. And he was like, "Man, it never does this. This is crazy." And I was like, "Wow, yeah, what an anomaly for Texas." And then next season 2, what do we get? The Snowmageddon, in which all of Texas gets blanketed in snow.
History of Texas. Every county in the entire state for the first time ever was inclement freezing weather for at least like 4 days straight. Hey, that's incredible. And then literally season 3 and then the hottest of all time. And then, real quick though, Drake, you said 0 lights. So you're saying like for all of our gaffers and G&E and cinematographers out there was no lights playing from exterior. Like we didn't throw anything in there that was kicking off.
Yeah, we did. I was just we did. I was just saying you're very limited because it was such a small space that he couldn't even fit lights in there. The main thing we lit with was a candle box, which means he's built a box that then has a reflector on the back of it and puts like 20 candles in it so it bounces the light, and that was our main source of light. So of course, he had some stuff outside. But there's no windows in that room either, so the only outside lights were through the doorway. And then everything else was lit from interior, and it was only basically candles and maybe like like 1 or 2 little lamps or something, to push it a little more. But it's so limiting.
Man, but everybody hates on Capernaum. Everybody, people don't hate on Capernaum. They talk about, obviously it was tiny rooms and this and that. But I know so many people that have said what grabbed them. My dad, who is extremely picky with TV and film and, spaghetti westerns and on the waterfront, they don't make them like that anymore. But he was grabbed by that, like that frame right there, the production design, the lighting and everything. And so the fact that we were able to make these things happen on, $1 million an episode, this little crowdfunded show that, Ben said earlier, was so great. It's so true. But man, you don't see that. You see excellence. You see, like, it's just every frame is just dynamite.
I have one thing I wanted to actually also mention about the Shabbat sequence, which is, Adam and I talked about, we get to meet Barnaby and Shula. It's just also interesting what we did this early on. Like, Shula was, of course, blind at this point in the show. Those are contacts. Those are contact lenses that had to be applied by someone that's called a lens tech, where you have to come in. They have them on any movie, any TV show you've ever seen where someone has like crazy eyes, unless it's done by CGI. Most of the time it's someone putting on contacts onto their actual eyeballs. And it's difficult, it's not quite like just putting on like regular eye contacts. Like it's, you can't see, it's very challenging to have a stranger touching your eyes, doing all this stuff. And they're
thicker. They cover way more of your eye than an actual. I've used them before. They're so thick. It's really like intrusive.
Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult.
We had spoke about Molly, who was our first team PA, who is in charge of all the actors and actresses. She would have to help walk her to and from set because it was so it was dark. It was snowing. It was crazy. There were animals out. Weatherford.
Yeah. Which is why Ben was by himself all night, because Molly had to be with her too. Which that got better. They got the wrong too thick of prescription or whatever that season, because by the next season she could see a lot better. But that first time she was completely blind. She couldn't see anything. We had to walk her everywhere she went. Yeah. She was truly blind. She wasn't having to act out that part.
Yeah, if that's it for that scene, then it's time to move on to the next scene.
The next. Frozen on the next scene.
So, Moving on to the next and final scene that we're going to talk about for episode 2. This is Sam Jenkins' scene that he wanted to talk about. This is kind of the closing of the episode, but of course it's been built up throughout the episode. Sam, would you kind of summarize and describe what we're going to talk about here?
I chose this scene, and it may be the shortest scene, it may be at the very end, but I think it's a very important scene because in these few seconds we have with Simon and the Romans, it sets up so much of the show. Simon makes a very, very controversial choice, which is to betray his people to keep food on the table for Eden, for Andrew, for his Ema. And I think this sets up so many catalysts of the rest of the show. It sets up Matthew and Simon's rivalry. It sets up all the disciples meeting Jesus because they have to go out to the boat to help Simon. Jesus shows up on the shore because of Simon's debt. Quintus, Gaius, they gain the attention of the disciples because of this choice. I think so much of the show can revolve around this small little scene. And it's so simple, but you never know if Simon, Simon's going to make the choice because he leaves Shabbat dinner, but you don't really want to see it. And then it's just that final confirmation at the end. There's no dialogue. They just show up with torches, and then they go, and that's the scene. And it kicks off the whole rest of these events that happen. And I think it's just such a fun little... This 1 minute sets up hours and seasons long of dialogue, of character development, of everything. So I love that little scene because of how it's so impactful it is without any dialogue.
Yeah, I totally agree, dude. That it's probably it might be my favorite closing scene to an episode. I remember watching and going, that's such a good cliffhanger. I have to watch the next episode right now. It was such a grabber. I was like, I have to watch the next one. This is so good.
That's all I had to say about it. It's just so simple.
Yeah. And I got to stand in for that. I remember standing in. I think Mitch took a picture of me. I was standing in for that. And I was like, this is the greatest picture of me I've ever had. This looks awesome.
It's just a cool spot. And it's cool. We've seen throughout this episode, Andrew debating this with Simon, Andrew trying to talk Simon out of this, Andrew kind of questioning Simon, Eden not knowing what is going on with Simon, but wanting him not to do this. It's a big conflict between the two of them. And then, he leaves during Shabbat dinner and he goes and he makes a decision that, like Sam said, sets up everything that happens after this. It's powerful. And two, it's also it's cool because this shot, you wouldn't think when you look at this shot that there's visual effects on it, but there is because where we filmed this is not just an endless sea. We filmed this in a lake in Texas, and so they had
Benbrook.
Benbrook Lake.
Benbrook.
They do such a great job with visual effects in the show, where it's usually not what's up close to you; it's usually the distance. The distance is a lot of times affected by VFX to just enhance the feeling of the world.
So, question for our first AD: did you purposely schedule this? Is that a full moon kissing off that water?
That'd be an 18K up on a giant condor.
Mm-hmm.
But how is that so far away? I mean, how would it be that far away?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge setup. He took it all the way across the lake. It was on the other side of the lake.
On the other side, an 18K kissed off the water that far? Because I know where we shot.
It was at the time, it was one of our biggest setups for sure. We had to get an 18K all the way across the lake and all these setups. Yeah, it was a lot.
I don't think this is at the place that you're thinking of. This is it was at a lake, but it was not the usual place where we do. This is not the same place where Jesus talks to Simon. This is not the place where the boys pull their boats up to the lake. This is not that same place. This is a different place that had.
Yeah, it was like
as you can see, the shore is more like grassy here.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So it's Benbrook. It's not that deep.
And actually, what's crazy, Mitch, too, I remember now, is that it was the water was like 20 feet higher than normal. They had that huge flooding, and so it was actually, we were shooting in an area where there wasn't even normally water there almost. It was up that high.
Well, that was season 1, episode 2 of the
It sure was.
That's it. That's it for season 1, episode 2. If you guys like these, I hope you guys like these, because we're going to do a lot more of these. And we have a new one coming out very soon where we go through episode 3 of The Chosen of season 1 with Brandon Snipe from The Chosen Sleuth. So don't miss it. It's coming out very soon. Until then, thank you for having Chosen
the Brosen.
Chosen. the Brosen.